Cromwell's Talking Head. Chapter 1. Heading off a burglar. Good evening, young master. Welcome to my grave. You're a burglar, I see, and you've been digging up a national treasure. And now you're in a deep hole, face to face with a hacked-off head of security, so deep you're never getting out again. What's that you're screaming? I meant no disrespect to the Crown, Mr. Ed, but I got mouths to feed. The Crown? Who said anything about the Crown? This treasure belongs to the nation. I've got a face like a sow's what? What do you expect? I'm dead. The name's Oliver, by the way. Oliver Cromwell. Pleased to meet you. They put an axe through my neck 350 years ago. 8 swings of the butcher's blade before they got my bloodless head off. I was never so hacked off in my life. Why did they do it? I chopped off the king's head, so his son chopped off mine. No, I am not having a laugh. I can't. And you'll be laughing on the other side of my face if I get any more of your cheek. Me and 58 soldiers chopped off the head of King Charles I in 1649. The only time the people of England ever topped a king and became the head of their own nation. Am I famous? Oh yes, I'm in all the history books, and I was on the head side of the coins until they brought the kings back. Have I been on I'm a Celebrity? Son, I'd rather eat my own face. Can you have an autograph? Not something I can really put my hand to. May you shake my hand instead, if you can find it. My hand is 200 miles away, in a tomb in Yorkshire, along with what's left of my body. How about a nose rub? There you go. Now we're talking. Now you're famous. Only the special ones go head-to-head with me, or pick what used to be my brains, or find out where my headless body is. But over the next 30 minutes, you'll hear it all, and then you'll be a celebrity. Until you die. Oh, stop yowling like a scared cat. What? You're too young to die. You didn't mean nothing. You was just on the Cambridge College tour, honest, Governor, and you got lost. At midnight, 6 feet underground, pull the other one, mate, if you can find it. Not your lucky day? No, son, but it is mine. September the 3rd. The day God and I won my great battles in 1649, 1650 and 1651. The day my soul went to heaven in 1658. The day this spike through my head was hit by a thunderbolt and started the Great Fire of London in 1666. That'll teach Londoners to chop my head off and put it up on a roof. My lucky day. But you make your own luck, son.
Headless horseman pulled a head and pulled a face as well. Says I to the horseman, why the long face? Says he, I've come from hell. I chopped off the head of an absolute king and a traitor to all he led. But the good King Charles, his very Tory, is anything but dead. Oh, they dig up my body, chop off my head, spike it on Westminster Hall. Not for my high over righteous zeal, for my Republican law. The king sold his soul for a Bloody Mary, the old foe his fingers crossed. Better the Irish we royally cheat than the Rhinehead who cannot be mossed. Though I stained the pale from green to red in 1649. Grave robbers butcher my body because I stopped Absolute Charlie in time. Oh, they dig up my body, chop off my head, spike it on Westminster Hall. Not for my high over righteous zeal, for my Republican lord. A headless horseman pulled her head and pulled her face as well. Says I to the horseman, why the long face? Says he, I've come from hell. I stained the pale from green to red in 1649. To hell or to Connacht, despoil me for that, not for being ahead of my time. Oh, they dig up my body, chop off my head, spike it on Westminster Hall. Not for my high over righteous zeal, for my Republican cause.
Chapter 2. Heading off on holiday. I made it my lucky day, my annual holiday, or as I used to call it, Holy Day. And every September the 3rd since 1658, I've had a get-together with my bones. You can join us. No, I insist. I said no, I insist. Put that national treasure down and we'll head north to Newborough, Yorkshire. You don't like Newborough? A bit dead, especially in Bod's bolt hole. Pull that postcard out of my chops. It's from Bod, my body. Read it. You can't read? You should learn to read. People can't mislead you so much when you can read. All right, I'll read it. Bod's bolt hole, Friday. Dear Head, wish I was there. I'm sweating green seepage like a dead pig and nothing makes sense without you. I need to freshen up. It's like worms have been nibbling my bits for 3.5 centuries, not to mention spiders and centipedes and maggots. And the rats. Gross. And the endless cold and damp is wearing me down, really getting on my nerves. Muscles, sinews, gristle, veins, bones. Bod goes on a bit, but he's got a lot of time on his hands. Needs to get out more. That mummy cloth they wound us in 1658, as much use as a wet blanket on a funny bone at Christmas. I'll catch my mouldering death up here. Can't wait for our stroll down memory lane on September the 3rd. Bring some nibbles for yourself, and something I can get down my neck. Give my best to Spike. Bod. Kiss.
First Civil War, 1642 to 1646. Battle of Edge Hill, October 1642. Half-time, Royalist win. Result, draw. Battle of Newbury, September 1643. Half-time, Royalist win. Result, draw. Battle of Marston Moor, July 1644. Half-time, Royalist win. Result, narrow parliamentary win. Battle of Naseby, June 1645. Fog-affected result. Half-time, draw after early Royalist lead. Result, decisive parliamentary win.
Chapter 3. A Royal Bighead. What are you shivering for, Master Burglar? I'm little more than skin and bone these days. I'm not going to eat you. Much. I can't. A crowd kicked my teeth out in 1661, just after they chopped my head off. Will you please shut your rude fat gob when you yowl and put your tonsils away? I am not giving you the evils. I can't. A flock of Westminster Hall crows pecked my eyes out in 1661. Not my idea of heaven. Spiked on a 20-foot oak pole on top of a roof for 25 years with a splitting headache. Oh, you think that's fair, do you? For killing the poor old king? Shall I tell you what the king did to poor fenmen like you? He stole their fields. And when they had to steal to feed their families, he chopped their ears off. What about a caution? That was the caution. And when the poor were so hungry they stole again, the king hanged them. Harsh, you think? Small-minded, mean, stupid, cruel, wrong. I thought so too. But that king didn't. He thought anything a king did was right. Like he thought any stupid, cruel idea in his head was clever. We have a crown of jewels and velvet on our head, he said. Therefore, we are God's gift. A right royal big head, yes. Until we chopped it off.
Why did the king lose the navy? Why did the king lose the navy? Control of the ports and of the country in 1642. He was soft on the Armada, two-faced wet to a Maria, stopped us relieving the Protestant martyrs in the 30 Years' War. Hooray, the Navy rises, hooray, the Navy rises against the court and its favourites' prizes, against bad King Charlie. Why did the king lose the navy? Why did the king lose the navy? Control of the ports and of the country in 1642. A smut on good Queen Bess's memory, sturdy English sailors, breezy piety, a Protestant trade wind up your fancy, Buckingham's and Stratfords. Hooray, the navy rises against the court and for the houses, customs dues in the commons' pockets against bad King Charlie. Why did the king lose the navy? Why did the king lose the navy? Control of the ports and of the country in 1642. He clothed it poorly and fared it badly on ship money forced on a mutinous country, then served the king better slave in a galley that cherished more than we. Hooray, up it rises to foreign flags through Charlie, crisis to Parliament now as the new world's finest admirals predicted. Why did the king lose the navy? Why did the king lose the navy? Control of the ports and of the country in 1642. It gave its love to the Earl of Warwick, a sailor himself who paid its service, fought Spain and Pope like good Queen Bess did, and for the mercantile interest. Hooray, and up it rises, securing trade and naval bases, big respect in foreign places, London for the Roundheads. Why did the king lose the navy? Why did the king lose the navy? Control of the ports and of the country in 1642. He overtaxed the merchant interest, the city of London, trade and business, licensed greed for his royal favourites, cavaliered our houses. Hooray, the navy rises, all but one of the royal warships, a 6-year fleet of Roundhead fierceness against bad King Charlie. Why did the king lose the navy? Why did the king lose the navy? Control of the ports and of the country in 1642. It put him in the Shire fields till he sobered, showed his cavaliers to the cliffs of Dover, made a forecastle of the Commons' orders, locked its doors against him. Hooray, the navy rises, mutinous crews deciding, captains against the court and for the houses, against bad King Charlie.
Chapter 4. Roundheads, you lose. We dragged the king from his fine palace of Windsor. We did not call him king, we called him Charles Stuart, murderer, traitor, burner, spoiler, mischief maker, nation destroyer, liar, sneak. He made war on his own country for 7 years. Our people's army was called the Roundheads. It was led by Sir Thomas Fairfax and me. The King's army was called the Cavaliers. The Roundheads won. We made peace. The King broke the peace deal, so we beat him again in a second war. Everyone knew he was a liar now. Stand down as king and let your son take your place. Never! Then you must stand trial as a traitor. I am your lawful king. He always stammered when crossed. You cannot try me. If you do, you bring the judgment of God on this land. He spent weeks combing his long curls and bleating about his crucifixion. We told him, you are not God's chosen. You are a tyrant with the blood of England on your hands. We sentence you to death. He stood there, not a king now, just a short man in a black hat and grey beard. He looked thin and ill. Let him speak, said John Downes. Downes was one of only 59 men who signed the king's death warrant. Fairfax would not sign it. What's wrong with you? I answered. He's a traitor and a tyrant. Charles Stuart chuckled nervously. So I am not allowed to speak. I said, you can speak on the scaffold.
His head with the crown upon it.
God damn this king, we cried. Only tyrants will tremble recalling this day. Good men recall it with pride.
Cavalier tales of cross-dressing kings,
Royalists gaping up oaks. Ha! Give us that heaven on earth achieved and run by new model blokes.
and ladies. The greatest England for 400 years.
From Agincourt to Waterloo, one with God on our side at Naseby Field forever.
Forever, for England, for you.
Was the earth made to preserve a few covetous, proud men to live at ease, and for them to bag and barn up the treasures of the earth from others, that these may beg or starve in a fruitful land? Or was it made to preserve all her children?
The bloodiest war in our history, and 1 in 4 of us died, for a castled king on a stagnant throne in a revolutionary tide. I spilled my blood, so I need a voice, cries Freeborn John at Putney. Who dies for England is England's king. We are no grandee's army. The poorest man in England has the right to live as the greatest. Our God's the all in all, our King's the Christ in every breast. The bloodiest war in our history, and 1 in 4 of us died, for a castled king on a stagnant throne in a revolutionary tide. We're the voice of the freeborn Englishman that was raised at Magna Carta, the dissenting flag of the good old cause, the commoner garden martyr. I rose with Tyler, straw and maul, when peasants shook the kingdom. I was sold down that river of blood by a king who hawked the soul of England. We need no manor, house or land to fix our permanent interest. We fight for England, our rights and ourselves, no mercenary business. The bloodiest war in our history, and 1 in 4 of us died. For a castled king on a stagnant throne in a revolutionary tide. I will rise against hill and Talbot, I will fall at Peterloo, march to Charters Tell and a Newport Hotel to win this Britain for you. Die a million deaths in 2 world wars, though the portions not so many as died for Charles, that man of blood, and in our red coat army a new model England truly advanced through rank and royal sin, in a cavalry charge to a future now, whose God, not man, is king. The bloodiest war in our history, and 1 in 4 of us died. For a castled king on a stagnant throne in a revolutionary tide. The bloodiest war in our history, and 1 in 4 of us died. For a castled king on a stagnant throne in a revolutionary tide.
In 1648, when England suffered the pangs of state, the Roundheads laid siege to Colchester town, where the king's men still fought for the crown. There one-eyed Thompson stood on the wall, he was the deadliest gunner of all. From St Mary's Tower, his cannon of flame, Humpty Dumpty was its name.
Second Civil War, 1648 to 1649. Siege of Colchester, June to August 1648. After extra time, draw. Penalty shootout. Parliamentary win.
Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
Battle of Preston, August 1648. Decisive parliamentary win over Royalists and Scots.
All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
Chapter 5. The King's Speech. We built a scaffold in Whitehall. We had nothing to hide. We invited a crowd. January the 30th, 1649, a cold morning. Charles was trembling with cold, not for fear, he said. He asked for a second shirt. He dressed himself neatly in his 2 shirts, not a hair out of place. He stared at the block. He stopped, stammering. The block to the wooden platform is extremely low. May it be raised a little? No, said a soldier. Why not? No reason. He had a paper in his hand. I have not been allowed to make a speech. May I make it now? His head turned on its swan neck. To me. Death. Yes. He made his speech, a history lesson. I am the king and you are my subjects. A subject and his king are clean different things. Cut off his head with the crown upon it. He lay down over the low block. A few grey hairs strayed out from his white cap. He tucked them back up neatly. I turned my head to the axeman. Do it boldly, Brandon. Oliver, no, begged Fairfax. The blade came down. The head shot off into the bloody basket. Brandon held it aloft by its hair. We felt blood spray our eyes and lips. We tasted royal blood. The army cheered. The crowd didn't. They groaned. Soft-headed fools. I said, men will remember this axe blow forever. Good men with pride, only tyrants with fear. I was patient all my life with good men, men who tried hard to be good. I only killed bad men, traitors, liars, thieves, kings. Why are you shivering, burglar?
As I was going by Charing Cross, I saw a black man upon a black horse. They told me it was King Charles the First. Oh dear, my heart was ready to burst. From the skies above Whitehall there tumbled a star. Dover Beach, a wail the same hour. A death fit for a king, a tearless man scoffed, whose eyes the crows pecked from his round head aloft. From the skies above Whitehall by Charing Cross, I saw the black man upon the black horse. They told me it was King Charles the First. Oh dear, my heart was ready to burst.
Chapter 6. Head Honcho. I ran the country for 10 years. They asked me to be king. I said, we no longer need kings. We didn't, until I died. Bury him as a king, they said. Over my dead body, I said. They did it anyway. 2 years later, they invited Charles I's son back to be King Charles II. I turned in my grave. Charles II heard me. He sent his men to dig me up. Do you mind? I said. Some of us are trying to rest in peace. They took me on a coffin ride to the King's Head in Holborn. Bradshaw and my son-in-law, Major General Ireton, were at the bar. Bradshaw was the sober judge who sentenced Charles I to death. The old rotter looked as stiff as ever. He'd been dead 2 years. Ireton died of a fever fighting the Irish in 1651. His 10-year corpse stood to attention. He looked well preserved for his age. "Long live King Charles II!" shouted the king's men from the straw. They were dead drunk. We were dead unimpressed. "What's the matter, Cromwell?" hiccuped the drunk on his back in the straw. "Too stuck up to drink our new king's health?" I was never against drinking. To keep wine out of the country lest men be drunk? Ha! When they turned my old house in Ely into the Cromwell Arms, it wasn't the first drink that house had seen. I even did a bit of brewing once. My redcoats and I never went into a battle without a pint or two inside us. We never lost a charge either. Everyone drank beer in those days, morning, noon and night. The whole country was merry the whole time. We drank beer and wine because the London water killed you. But I never drank to a king, and I never drank like a pig at trough. These royalists did. The bar queue was longer than the king's drinking bill. A man came in, waiting to be served. He pointed at me. "Is that Cromwell?" The drunk on the floor broke wind and belched. "Good morning, Sam." "Yes." "Sam, Mr. Pepys to you." "How long has my Lord Cromwell been there?" he asked. 4 days, Pepys," shouted a drunk from the floor, "and he still hasn't been served." The royalists laughed themselves sick. "I can't wait that long for a drink," said Sam, "and I will be reporting your behaviour in my diary." Bradshaw wasn't looking well. Green, mouldy, sweating blood and pus, and his backside. Oh. I dripped into his ear. "You weren't preserved like me and Ireton, were you?" "How do you know?" he dribbled. "You smell." "You smell?" "I do not smell," he grinned. "I stink." "Someone's pinched my nose," shouted Ireton. "Then how do you smell?" I asked. Not as bad as Bradshaw.
When Cromwell was running the English Republic, I, Charles II, was in France. And Cromwell said that all I cared for was my oar and my shoulder of buff.
Oh la la.
One thing you can say about Cromwell, he called un bon fourche. How you say, a good fuck, a good fuck.
Zut alors.
A frog he would oh and go, hey ho, says Rolly. Whether his mother would let him or not, with a roly-poly gammon and spinach, hey ho, says Anthony Rolly. So off he set with an opera hat, hey ho, says Rolly. And on the road he met with a rat with a roly-poly gammon and spinach, hey ho, says Anthony Rolly. They came to the door of Mousie's Hall, hey ho, says Rolly. They gave a loud knock and they gave a loud call with a roly-poly gammon and spinach, hey ho, says Anthony Rolly. Pray, Mrs. Mouse, will you give us some beer? Hey ho, says Rolly. For Froggy and I are fond of good cheer with a roly-poly gammon and spinach, hey ho, says Anthony Rolly. But while they were all a merry-making, hey ho, says Rolly. A cat and her kittens came tumbling in with a roly-poly gammon and spinach, hey ho, says Anthony Rolly. The cat she seized the rat by the crown, hey ho, says Rolly. The kittens they pulled the little mouse down with a roly-poly gammon and spinach, hey ho, says Anthony Rolly. This put Mr. Frog in a terrible fright, hey ho, says Rolly. He picked up his hat and he wished them good night with a roly-poly gammon and spinach. Hey ho, says Anthony Roly. But as Froggy was crossing over a brook, hey ho, says Roly. A lily-white duck came and gobbled him up with a roly-poly gammon and spinach. Hey ho, says Anthony Roly. So that was the end of 1, 2 and 3. Hey ho, says Roly. The rat and the mouse and the little froggy with a roly-poly gammon and spinach. Hey ho, says Anthony Roly. Merci.
Chapter 7. Off Our Heads. Ireton, Bradshaw and I were leaking towards the fireplace. The drunks took a leak on the floor. "Use the fireplace, you pigs," said the barman. "You kick Cromwell's crutch," said a royalist. "I'll punch Bradshaw's face in." He threw a punch and his fist stuck. He plucked it free. Bradshaw's eye came away in his ale, followed by his guts and some of Bradshaw's. I leaned over and winked at the royalist. "Bradshaw wasn't preserved. You're punching a rotten cheese." My mouth oozed forward over his nose and mouth. He tore his face from mine with a faint suck. They brought sledges outside the King's Head and dragged us, in our coffins, to Tyburn. Things looked grave. We were jeered and stoned and yelled and pelted and barked and spat at, and in the case of anyone close enough to get a whiff of Bradshaw, sicked on. "Nice to get out of that booze hole and into the fresh air," said Bradshaw. "That barman had the worst BO in London." We arrived at Tyburn Tree at 9 a.m. Heroes of the Republic. They hanged us like criminals. Me, fresh as a daisy. Ireton, 10 years buried, hanging like a dried rat, except for the stuff streaming out of his backside. Bradshaw, with his nose and the fingers of his right hand rotted off in a pus-soaked winding sheet. For 6 hours the crowd laughed its head off, then they hacked off ours. Bradshaw's kind of fell off. Ireton's snapped off like a dried apple. Mine took 8 cuts. "More cloth round his neck than a bishop, stiff-necked pig." "Don't call me a bishop." They smashed the end of my nose off. They knocked out most of my teeth. "Hey, watch the face. I'm supposed to be getting it in the neck." Some jokers cut off Bradshaw's toes and threw them to the crowd. One pocketed my ear. Finally, they got through my collarbone. My head hit the basket. They held it up to the cheering crowds. They kicked our headless bodies into a deep pit under the gallows. One body got lost in the crowd. The King's man looked worried. "As long as we ditch Cromwell? The bod in the push green cloth?" Yes, we did. Definitely.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. A selfish king had a fiscal sting to shrink the Jack and Jill
Chapter 8. Heads Up. Heads up, lads, I said. Here come the metal spikes. What are they going to do with those? Bradshaw was falling apart. Pull yourself together, man, it can't hurt you. I can't think of a worse place to get a spike, said Bradshaw's head. I can, said Ireton's, but luckily it's down there in the pit. Bradshaw closed his sockets. They spiked and hoisted him. He didn't notice. Hey up, Bradshaw, you're on. On what? A 20-foot oak pole on the top of Westminster Hall. Bradshaw went green. Then it was my turn. You could see half of London up on that roof, until the birds got your eyes. I always said the same crowd who cheered my speeches would cheer as loud for my hanging. Now they did. Up came Ireton to make 3 bold traitors. Me on one side of Bradshaw, Ireton on the other. Not so bad once you're up, bled Ireton. Is Bradshaw's head in the middle because he was the head of the court that chopped off the king's head? My tongue was spiked. Just nod. I nodded. We made headlines in all the papers. King killing killjoys cut down to size by common crowd. The Royalist Times. Woundheads warned by wicked woils. The Puritan. Up yours, Crom! The Sun. Bouncy actress busts king's bed. The Stage. Well, maybe not the Stage. None of them got the story right. You will, Master Burglar. You will trace the cut through Bod's collarbone to this dirty great chop in my neck. The last of 8. Put your finger on it. Of course you can. It's only like touching a frog. That's right. It wasn't my body in the pit. My family did a switch while the crowd's back was turned. It was Bradshaw's. One whiff should have told them. His body was the rotting green of a 2-year corpse. Mine was the sweet green of royal grave cloth. And it was already heading north in the back of a cart. If a headless body can head north.
Third Civil War, 1649 to 1651. Against Charles II, Royalists and Scots. Battle of Dunbar, September the 3rd, 1650. Half-time, Royalist and Scots massacre. Result, miraculous parliamentary win. Battle of Worcester, September the 3rd, 1651. The final. Parliamentary win.
Chapter 9. Headless. Can a body ask where you're taking it? Yorkshire. Ha! They want some more, do they? Bod, wind your neck in. There's a price on your head. My head's in London, on a spike. Your body then, and our heads. Think about it. Think? What with? Oi, Yorkshire, my new model army smashed yours at Marston Moor and I'll do it again. We risk our heads for his body and he yells his neck off. I never thought a relative of mine would be so spineless. Where's your strong Cromwell jaw? Where's yours? What happened to that fully round-headed Oliver we loved? The wise head on strong shoulders, always thinking of others. They spiked it. I'm brainless brawn now, I can't think. So, it's a gut feeling, a no-brainer. You're a rebel hero, the model of a king killer. The royalists want your relics trampled out of sight, out of mind. Then why did they dig me up? Come on, Yorkshire, if you think you're hard enough. Shh! Because you were buried as a king in King Henry VII's tomb. They want your head on a traitor's spike instead. and your remains in a common pit, spat on and walked over, an example to anyone who even thinks about going head to head with a king. Let them find me. I won't spill my guts to any royalist patrol. You haven't got any guts, Bod. They were scraped out with a trowel and the hole filled with spices, like a king. Remember? Like a king? Me? I hated kings. Shh. Stop jawing back there. Royal Patrol. What's all this then? A dead body, Constable. What did you think it was? Oliver Cromwell? Cocky Southerners, eh? And what's a dead body doing in the back of your cart? Nothing much. It's Uncle Bod. We're taking him home for a decent family burial. Where's his head? It got held up in London.
Right, children. What was the Crooked Mile? The Anglo-Scottish border. Sir. Who was the crooked man? General Sir Alexander Leslie. Sir. What was the crooked sixpence? For the pay he took fighting against the king, for the king, against the king, and then as his loyal captain, handing him over for his execution. Sir.
There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. There was a crooked man, and he walked a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence on a crooked stile. He found a crooked sixpence on a crooked stile. He bought a crooked cat that caught a crooked mouse. He bought a crooked cat that caught a crooked mouse.
Chapter 10. Chop, chop. So, Master Burglar, now you know where me and Bod live. Which means I have to chop your head off. What's that? Your children need their father? You love your wife? You'll get an honest job? Oh, shut your noise and listen. All right. My worst enemy would tell you I always gave people a choice and a second chance, even the king. Make sure you take yours. It's this. Next time you come to my old college, make sure you can read the signs. And if I catch you with your hands in the treasure again, it's a bolt hole in Yorkshire for you with brainless Bod. How long for? In death, in Italy. No, you can't have a lift. I'm heading back to heaven, and you're climbing back out of this hole on your own hands and feet with your head held high. Well, don't just stand there. I'm giving you a head start. Leg it. Chop, chop, before I change my mind. Cheeky burglar.
was of the same stock, the first but the fourth of the flock. He would have done well, should have been the Cromwell, when the Monkey King turned back the clock.
Cromwell's Talking Head was written and performed by Gareth Calway. The programme was produced by Paul Tyler and Johnny Hall.